10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, how's everyone doing today? This is Bob Gums, and we are bringing you the Concern Forum. And the truth does matter. So, where are we at now, folks? How stands the union, as my friend Daniel Webster would say? Well, we seem to be in a bit of a pickle, but it's not a pickle of our doing. Let me tell you what's up. We're facing some gigantic problems. And I will tell you, the biggest problem that we have, and I know that there are many out here that would disagree, but the biggest problem that we have is climate change. Why? Because climate change is something that faces us all, whether we live in New York, Appalachia, LA, Kansas City, or whether we live in Thailand, Philippines, Australia. It affects us on a planetary basis. So that's the number one problem that we have. And we have to start learning how to keep things in proportion. Okay, we have to prioritize, or I should say learn how to prioritize. And that's one of the biggest problems that I see in today's American politics. We don't prioritize. As a matter of fact, we try to avoid prioritizing. And if we don't start to learn how to prioritize and what needs to be prioritized, it could spell very well the death of this planet. And that's not hyperbole. That's the first thing. Second thing, in terms of America and being America, we have to mature. We have to grow up. We have to realize right now, whether we like it or not, we are the big dog. Now, there are a lot of different reasons why, but we are an empire, and we need to stop, people need to stop denying that. You are what you are, right? We are the empire right now, at this point in history. Now, you can talk about unipolar or bipolar world, all that good international geopolitical gobbledygook, okay? But like it or not, we are an empire. The question is, will we remain the empire of this on this planet? History will tell, time will tell, okay? I think the most important thing is, it's like a guy living his life, right? What do you leave behind? What are you going to be remembered for? That's the first thing. Now, in terms of what's happening now, in this time period, well, as I said before, we are a global empire. The big question is, what type of empire are we going to be? Our music is played from one corner of this planet to the other. Even dictators, oligarchs, right? They hate us, but they love our music. You're going to find American music. You're going to find Aretha Franklin played in Vietnam, Norway, the bottom of South America. That is our cultural imperialism. Economically, right? Our technology for right now, and we better be damn careful that we don't lose that jump. And unfortunately, but it's true, we have a lot to thank World War II for. That's just the way the dice rolled. With the rest of the world was basically bombed to oblivion, and we basically were the ones that built it back up. We also had people in both political parties here in America that had enough sense to know that, well, 1945, 46, this is when we start spending money as an investment in our future and the future of the rest of the world. That's what the Marshall Program was all about. We were afraid that the Russians, or the communists, or communist Russia, put it that way, we were afraid that they were going to basically take over Europe. And fortunately, they didn't. We, the United States, we are the reason that you have a NATO, that you don't have Russia going from one end of Europe to the other. Because we basically built up Western Europe and kept it going. That's one of the reasons why these folks in places like Germany, France, the Norwegian countries, basically have such a high quality of life. And see, that's not to take away from Western European countries, right? But just so that you know, America, we're the ones that basically, we invested in them. And they did the right thing with what we invested, what we basically helped to put out there. And unfortunately, one problem is that we did not take our own advice. We basically gave the Western world the blueprints on how to recover from World War II. We only followed that blueprint for ourselves a little bit. I'm talking about things like the GI Bill and government grants for people to be able to buy homes, things of that nature, research and development. We did a good job with that in the late 40s, the 50s, the 60s, going into the early 70s. Unfortunately, it wasn't, it was kind of an uneven situation. Many people did not benefit from the GI Bill. And I'm talking about guys and gals who actually fought in our military in World War II, but because of the melanin in their system, in other words, if they were black people or Hispanic people, and they lived in a certain part of the country, or I should say they came back and lived in a certain part of the United States. If you were from the South, it was not as easy to be able to benefit from federal housing grants, from the GI Bill, for certain types of government investments, as opposed to somebody, say, living in New York or Chicago. Now, if you lived in Boogaloo, Mississippi, it was definitely very difficult to get your righteous benefits from the federal government. I remember my mom had a hell of a problem trying to get her Social Security thing straight because she was from Virginia. And the whole thing with the Social Security number and whatnot, that did not work out well for many black folks from the South. Main reason being because they wanted to keep people of color in the kitchen for the white lady. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. And see, we have, you have to keep that in mind. But overall, we did a fairly good job. The problem is that as we went into the 70s and we passed the mid-70s, we stopped the engine to a very large extent. And because of that, we're suffering now. We decided to invest as a nation. We decided to invest, for example, what's a good example? China, right? When did Nixon open up China? Was it 71, 72? Well, from that time onwards, the Republican Party, generally speaking, their whole thing became, how much can we invest in communist China today? And I mean, I can see the logic in that to a point. But what we did, we spent more time and effort investing in China and some other places than we did investing in our own country. And we see the results of that today. And I'm not just talking about, oh, you're just talking about your black guys in the projects there in Harlem. No, 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 no. You didn't invest in Harlem. You didn't invest in Appalachia. Why in the hell should a state like West Virginia, for example, and a large part of that state, those people are still living like it's 1910. Why is that? And I'm ashamed to say that they have a Democratic senator whose name I don't need to call. But see, that's what I'm saying with the mentality. We stopped looking out for our country as a whole. And that does not bode well as we go, as we go into the 21st century. And this is what we need to worry about. Now, in terms of what's happening now, I think the greatest domestic danger that we have here in the United States, and I wish that I could find a working class white American, have him on the show, and talk to him the same way I'm talking to you, and just let him know, hey, the Republican Party, this is the party of Putin. It stopped being the party of Lincoln quite some time ago. And see, what is really killing us as a country is that working class white Americans, unfortunately, they allowed themselves to be put in a position where the Republican Party basically just takes advantage of them. I don't like to use the term, being played for a chump or being played for suckers. So let's just say that the Republican Party has been playing working class white Americans, and it's not right. It truly isn't. Listen, we all live in this country, okay? It's just like a family. Sometimes, you got people in the family you might not get along with, you might have problems with, but they're still family. America is like that, right? We live here. Nobody is going to come out and say, yeah, well, what are you going to do? You're going to chase all the white people out of America? That's stupid, right? You're going to chase all the black people out of America? Well, a lot of black people, their antecedents here in America, they go back longer than many white Americans. I mean, that's just a statement of fact. I'm not trying to be a wise guy. That's just a fact of life. I know my mother's people on the Virginia side, they've been here since the 1680s. So family lore has it. So what, you're going to look at me like I'm the other? This has to stop. If we are to maintain our nation, we have to stop this craziness. And I will tell you quite frankly, if you believe in the American ideals, what this country is supposed to stand for, then explain to me how you can be a part of today's Republican Party. I don't care what color you are, because I know the Republicans, they have gotten into this underground thing. Yeah, we're going to get a few black people out there and put them up front, and to to maybe tamp down the anti-Republican feeling that is very strong in the black community, in the American black community. And the reason for that feeling, and that's what Republicans refuse to look at, the reason that you are so unpopular in the black community here in America is because you have come across very damned racist. And do you think that we're supposed to feel better because you are attacking Jews, or you are attacking Hispanics, or you are attacking Asians? You will find, generally speaking, and this has nothing to do with trying to speak for the whole black American community, but you will find, generally speaking, black people do not like to get into things where the key to joining with them is to attack other people, right? Never has, and hopefully, God willing, we never will. But see, that's the problem with the Republican Party. And I hate to use the term expert. Experts always make working class people very suspicious when somebody says that they're an expert, right? Working class guys, we don't like that. But I will tell you, I think I'm about as close to an expert on the Republican Party and not being an office holder that you're going to find. I grew up in the Republican Party, right? The Republican Party that I grew up in, you had decent men and women, right? Senator Romney, for example, from out there in Utah. I had the pleasure to meet, I was a little kid, but my dad used to take me to some of these, Republican meetings. That's how I had a chance to speak to Governor Rockefeller a couple of times. I mean, I'm like, 8, 9 years old, and I'm meeting and speaking with these people. And I will tell you, Romney's parents, his mom and dad, were beautiful people. Seriously. Jack Kemp, folks of that. The guy who mentored me in politics almost as much as my dad did, Senator Jake Javits. Yeah, that's the one that they named the convention center after. That was a beautiful man. He was a beautiful man, and he respected you. Republican, Democrat, didn't make a difference to him. You don't find people like that too often in today's Republican Party. So when people want to try, like sometimes when you folks call me on the phone and say, "Oh, well, you just hate all Republicans." No, that's a lie. I grew up with two loving parents. Didn't always agree with them, but they were decent people, they were loving people. And the people that they surrounded themselves with were the same damn way. And I'll tell you something else. My parents were also, back in those days, what they called them black nationalists, right? He was what's the proper term? I don't want to say friend, because I think that would be an imposition. But he was very close to Malcolm X. When I say close, I'm saying that my dad could be walking down 125th Street on 7th Avenue, see Malcolm out there and say, Brother X. And Malcolm would respond, Brother Walter, how you doing? It was, that kind of a relationship. He was in one of the scenes when Denzel Washington was portraying Malcolm, the part where they had beaten the brother in the basement of the police station. And people marched, they marched to, what was it, Harlem Hospital. My dad was there for that, okay? So I want people to understand. The Republicans nowadays talk about, well, we have a Big Ten. No, what you have done, you have become a trash collector. You don't have a Big Ten, you have a big trash can. And that's what you did, especially after you brought Trump in. That's what you did to the Republican Party. You went from being a big tent party to a big garbage can. So that's why I don't need anyone to tell me about the Republican Party. I was there. I gave them one more chance. Oh, and before I go on, my old man was also a union leader. He was a shop steward for Local 452. So you had union organizers in the Republican Party. You had black nationalists in the Republican Party. And this party today, this party is basically, I would call it a Nazi party or a totalitarian party, okay? This is not the party of Lincoln. This is the Republican Party of the day is not the party of Lincoln. It's the party of Putin. You have an American party being led by a former president of that party, and this guy is singing praises to a leader of a country that squelches dissent by making people disappear, usually out of a window, or poisoning them, right? Now, we know the facts, and I'm quite sure that our intel people can supply you with much more. But this is who Donald Trump and his Republicans sing the praise out of. And, God forbid that this thing in the Ukraine gets any worse. But if it does, I would strongly suggest that our intel people, for the safety of all of us, keep a very sharp eye on this Republican Party. And I say this now in terms of counterespionage. Trump has been playing footsie with the oligarchs, as far as I know, at least since the 80s, right? And to me, I think one of the dumbest questions is, oh, well, why were the Democrats spying on Donald in the 2016 election and all this kind of crap? Listen, in my opinion, this is my opinion, if they were not investigating Donald Trump, they would be guilty of not doing their job, period. The Soviet Union, I'm going back to the 80s now, they were our primary adversary in the world, okay? When we have a guy who says he wants the job of being the strongest man in the world, we have every right, every necessity to find out where this dude is coming from, who he does business with. There's nothing wrong with that. And if anyone tries to tell you that there is, you tell them to stick their head in the bucket. Because Donald spent buku time, Vietnam. Donald spent a lot of time in Russia, quote unquote, on business. But this business about, oh, well, Donald was just an innocent lamb just trying to do business, that's absolute nonsense. And I would look very closely at Trump and his relationship to Putin and a few other certain oligarchs over there. What does that have to do with Ukraine? If you recall, the first time that we attempted to impeach, when I say we, I'm talking about in Congress, the first time that we tried to, how should I say, impeach Donald, it was behind this whole, Ukraine business, trying to create problems for the pro-Western forces there in Ukraine. And now we see Putin desperately trying to break down the Ukrainian government. And I'm sorry, don't hand me this crap like that's just a coincidence. Number one, I don't believe in coincidences. Number two, a lot of this stuff has been played out right in front of our faces for the last 5 or 6 years. And I think that it's time that the American people, that we matured and woke up and got woke, because we are dealing with a former president and his political party that have greater loyalty to Putin and his dictatorial regime than they have for America and for our Constitution. And it's time that people wake up and realize that. And that's why the Republicans are busy with all this nonsense. Oh, to mask or not to mask. Oh, the vaccine is dangerous, right? CRT, what? Critical race theory. Worst thing in the world to expose your little children to. This is absolute nonsense. And the American people, for their own sake, need to sit down and think about this, right? I get so tired. Oh, well, you hear Joe Biden is doing blah, blah, blah. He's not, in the polls, he's down. Listen, when you tell who your real friends are? When your butt is hanging way out there and you are scared and you don't know who you're going to turn to for help. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, look, we're in this together. Let me see what I can do to help. That's how you find out who your real friends are. Now, America, when you needed a friend, the Democrats and Joe Biden were there, right? Look at all the various programs, agendas that the Democrats have been trying to fight through to get help to the American people. Where were the Republicans? They weren't there. I'm still waiting. Hello, Republicans. Your health care bill? Huh? When was that? 2009? You were talking about having a health care bill that was better than Obama's? And what is this now? 2022. And we still don't see a Republican health care bill. Come on, people. Get woke. I know Bill Maher doesn't like that term, but for God's sake, get woke. Okay, wake up means the same thing, right? Wake up and ask yourself, why are these clowns going to come out now? They're coming out there like gangbusters. And basically, they're saying a whole lot of nothing. What have you done, Republicans? What have you done to try and help the American people? You have worked to cheer up Putin more than you have worked to cheer up the American people. And here goes what really trips me out. You got Republicans campaigning for this November, and they are campaigning for, yeah, well, this is what I did to help the people of this district. Wait a minute, man. When the vote came up, you voted against it. The Democrats were able to get it through without your help because you voted against it. Now you go back to your district and you're saying like you did this and you did that and you didn't do jack. And see, this is what I mean when I say I hate to see anybody being played. All right? Well, if you turn around and you vote for somebody like that, that's what it means when it says you are being played for a chump. Excuse me a second. So much dust. Excuse me. But that's what we mean when we talk about being played for a chump. This guy is going to try and tell you, this guy or this lady is going to try and tell you, well, yeah, you should vote for me because I've done so much. And the truth of the matter is they haven't done a damn thing, nor do they have any desire to do a damn thing. So you have to ask yourself a question. You're dealing with a party, with a group of people. A, they don't believe that anything needs to be done to help the American people. And B, they think that one of the most dictatorial regimes in today's modern world deserve all types of praise. Doesn't that seem kind of funny? And we're supposed to be patriotic Americans? I don't get that. And when your cries for help are made known, Republicans ignore it. And I don't get that. And then on top of that, they're going to say, hey, well, we want to make sure that the vote is fair and honest. Well, hey, man, the only people that are getting busted for messing around with the voting, they've all been Republicans. Oh, that's right. That one black lady who was given permission from the state of Texas to vote because she had a felony in her record. And the people at their polls there in Texas said, "No, you're good. You can be a registered voter." And that's it. So everybody else is Republican. And see, this is what really worries me about the American people. When you let these people make a chump out of you, you are letting Republicans make a chump out of all of us. This hurts the common good for the entire country. And as you have seen, we don't live on the planet by ourselves, whether we like it or not. We have international trade, international finance. America just can't, well, look, I don't want to mess with any of this anymore. The modern world does not work that way. And the Republicans are both dumb and irresponsible for trying to get you folks to believe that it does work that way. That is so wrong. That is so, as a matter of fact, that's part of the problem now with this whole Ukrainian thing. Because I do believe that Trump has given Putin reason to believe that he could basically keep America out of world affairs, and that would be the end of it. Unfortunately, he thought he could steal the election in 2020, and fortunately, we had people, ironically, Republicans, some of whom he had picked himself, and these people, they honestly felt that they were Americans first and partisans second. And those Republicans, I say, God bless them. And I think the American people need to start looking and thinking about things in that same fashion. Do you love your country, or do you just love Donald Trump? You can't have it both ways, because unfortunately, what is it that Grant said in 1860? We only have two parties now. We have the party of the patriots, and we have the party of treason. Well, since the ones that who are rooting for that dictator, Putin, I don't think it should be too hard to tell who is the real patriot, or who is the real patriot, and who is the traitors. It's just that simple. And I'll be happy to tell Mr. Trump, or write him a letter. As a matter of fact, I think I'll do that tonight, and call him and his crew, call them out for the traitors that they are. It's just that simple. Now, this whole thing about the conservatives who claim to be so patriotic, I thought that they were committed to the American ideals, but yet they fall in love with a totalitarian dictator that, as I said earlier, he kills his opponents, works to get himself elected for life. Sound familiar? But yet, this is what we see on Fox Network. They don't even, lately they haven't really, what did they do or talk about that's even serious on Fox? Nothing, nothing I can see. And even if you were concerned about America being involved in the war behind the Ukraine, why would you take the side of Russia? I don't understand that. Ukraine started this thing out as a sovereign nation. This business about, well, we've always been close to each other. Well, hell, we've always been close to Canada. Yet I wonder how Canadians would feel, especially after that trucker nonsense. How do you think the folks in Canada would feel if America just, well, we don't like what's going on in Canada, so we're going to take it over? You think the Canadians would be happy about that? I don't think they'd be happy about that. And see, that's basically what's going on in the Ukraine. See, listen, this is the purpose of the United Nations, to make sure that you're not going to have, this one guy or a small group of people, and they're going to decide, well, nation B should be part of my nation, so we're just going to take it over. Well, that's one of the reasons why we came up with the United Nations. See, this was an idea. America came, I won't say we're not the only ones that came up with this idea, but we're one of the founding members. And, to the idea that America could be isolationist, I've always felt that that was pretty damn dumb, right? Because you don't live by yourself on this planet. What happens when one country starts doing something that's dangerous for the health and welfare of the entire planet? You must have some type of vehicle where, folks can sit down and talk at the very least. So that's essentially what this big thing about Ukraine is all about. So don't let some of these Republicans, don't let them fool you into thinking that, oh, well, this is just America getting involved in other people's affairs. Well, guess what? Sometimes you do have to get involved in other people's affairs, because eventually those affairs could wind up biting you on the butt. But see, people who don't read or don't give a damn about reading or studying history, they have a very difficult time thinking like that. And that's another danger when you go and elect people, like a couple of ladies, one from Colorado and one from, I believe, Georgia, when you elect people that they would have a difficult time trying to get out of the fourth grade. See? There's a reason why people have a tendency to try to find people who know a little something when they're trying to figure out some of the problems in today's world. Now, as I said earlier, by all means, you have to keep an eye on this Republican Party. Now, I will say that you have Republicans that do understand why we have to stand up to Putin. Thank God. That says that, that tells me that maybe there's a hope that Trump has not killed all the brain cells in the Republican Party. But by and large, unfortunately, those Republicans that still have a few brain cells left, they have to be honest and they have to admit that they kind of set themselves up for this business. And I believe that they possibly, hang on a second here, let me see if I can find that. I believe that we may even, or they, I'm sure they realize that they might even be responsible for what's happening to a point. They might be responsible for what's happening in the Ukraine now. Because remember, they spent 4 years emboldening this guy, Trump. And believe me, Trump spent 4 years in the White House emboldening every dictator out there. So this is some of these are some of the things that you have to bear in mind. Now, I had picked up a few things, and I had put them in. A big problem that I constantly have these Republicans jamming up my email, donate to Trump. Now, I find that to be so, so interesting. This from the guy that's always bragging about his wealth, and yet, he constantly has his damn hand out. And that doesn't make any sense to me. It's terrible, quite frankly. Okay, almost there. Ooh, is that it? Come here, baby. Where are you? But yeah, you have to remember, we have helped keep the world safe since World War II. And yes, I know Korea, Vietnam. So the Cold War was not all that hot, fortunately. But yeah, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And we should always remember that. Now, this is what really shakes me up here. Former President Trump, praised, this was just this past Tuesday, praised Vladimir Putin's decision to send Russian troops into the Ukraine. So here we have a former American president, American now, praising a dictator for using military action. Now, I shouldn't laugh, but then sometimes you have to laugh when you have a situation where you got people that they can see, yet they're blind. And I think it's something else that we have to consider also. Who are we? Who are we? America, who are you? We have President's Day. We got 4th of July. We talk about the Declaration of Independence. But really, folks, who the hell are we? What do we believe? Do we believe as a nation all men are created equal? And of course, that's just we understand that means, all men and women. All humanity, let's say, is created equal. I mean, do we believe that? Or don't we believe that? You hear a lot being said about CRT, critical race theory. Now, some people might ask, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, actually, it really doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot, unless you're like a first-year law student. That's when I first came across the term. But what really bugs me is how, the guy admitted it. You have this young Republican activist, and he admitted that he brought up the whole business about critical race theory. He brought that up just to raise hell. And he accomplished that. He most certainly did. But is that a way that you want to, is that how you want to select your leaders? Is that how you want your government to run? That's what I mean when I say, who the hell are we? What kind of circus are we running here? Because I will tell you, the people who, those who cry and gnash their teeth about CRT, critical race theory. These are people that don't want to see any history taught that goes into depth about how things happened to people of color. See, I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression, all right? Yes, we need to know about slavery here in America. But we also need to know what did Asians, what kind of stuff did they have to encounter? Why was it that not too long ago, we're talking about maybe the 1920s, 1930s, a Chinese person could not become a citizen of the United States? You know, do people know that? And we should also talk about land usurpation from the Native American people and how they were made to be strangers in their own land. Been here for thousands of years. And then they were basically told, you know, get off your land and just keep heading west. And that's the end of the story. And if you hang around, we're going to commit genocide. Don't people have a right to know that? And this is a real big thing in Texas and Arizona, you know, talk about land. You know, Hispanic people have been there for hundreds of years, and their land was stripped away from them. And, you know, in Arizona, they don't want you to teach that in school. And it's been like that before. When they started talking about CRT, about 3 months ago? Well, this has been a thing in Arizona for some years. And they've been squawking and fighting about that. You know, the people that they want to yell and they want to scream and yell about patriotism and being anti-American, all this kind of crap. But these are the people who are the most un-American folks that you can find. You want to burn books, right? Or make them disappear. You don't want anything taught. You don't even want words taught. You don't even want racism. You don't want that to be used in the classroom. How in the hell? You know what? And the Ivy League schools in this country need to play a big role in this. You have someone, say, from Texas, a high school person, and they want to go to Harvard or Brown or Yale or North, any of your higher level places of higher education, then they should have to be willing and they should be made to understand, yeah, fine, we're not gonna stop you from coming here because you're from Texas or Tennessee. But you do have to recognize that you're not gonna be able to just start off as a freshman. You are gonna have to take a remedial American history class. Because no matter what, some of these ladies, because they seem to be the main impetus, but I don't necessarily blame them. I think that these sweet ladies are being used, all right, in most cases. They're being used by people that don't want kids to learn the integral part that people of color have played in the making of America. And I don't see somebody being able to get a college degree without knowing about the history of their own country. See, this is what brings home, this is what has our people coming back in body bags. I think Vietnam was a prime example of that. Because people during Nam, a lot of people who were supposedly educated, but they couldn't understand the difference between a communist takeover as opposed to a struggle by one group of people trying to break free from their colonial masters. See, you gotta remember, Vietnam, they had been used to fighting, right? They had fought the Chinese, and then they had to fight the Japanese, and before that they were fighting the French. And then what does France do at the end of World War II? Well, France, in many cases, they turned over the administration back to the same Japanese, cruel Japanese masters that they had, along with the French, fought to be free of. So how's that? You know, we're coming up on the end of World War II. The whole world knows that the world has gone through a cataclysmic struggle, and what's going to happen next, there we go, and we know what's going to happen next is that the world is going to change. Colonialism is heading for the trash can. India is going to get their independence from Britain, right? Same thing with a lot of the African countries were starting to rumble for their freedom. And what does France do? The same people that fought side by side together against the Japanese militarists, they turn right back around and give the administrative positions to those same Japanese. So yeah, that would piss me off if I was Ho Chi Minh. Yeah. And it goes on from there. And we didn't have enough sense to learn from the French debacle in '54. Remember Bien Bien Phu? We didn't learn from that. And that's what made Vietnam so messy. That's why you had those body bags coming home. And see, you are setting up people who seem to hate the idea of black history or African American history, or however you wish to put it. People like that, they are setting America up for the same type of fiasco. Because damn it, if you don't learn your own history, if you don't understand your own history, how in the hell, in an international world, how the hell do you think you're going to be able to wheel and deal with somebody 10, 15,000 miles away if you don't know who you are? And that is the problem that we have here domestically in America. And it must stop. It has to stop. We have to basically ignore the book burners, right? Because I find that most of these conservatives, you know, people that are so irate about this or that, they are usually irate because of the fact that they're upset because people don't want to do what they want them to do. And that's not the American way. We don't hide knowledge from people. That's not our way. You don't take knowledge and put it in a closet. The only point that they have is, yeah, third grade, fourth grade, no pornography. I can get with that, right? because we all come out of different types of homes, different theological opinions, beliefs, what have you, okay? And I can get with that as far as the pornography is concerned. But everything else, you know, I don't want my child to be exposed to this because he'll hate himself. What kind of kid are you raising? You know, what kind of little pampered princess and princes are you raising? Life goes on whether you like it or not. And the school boards, they you know, that should be ignored. And no, because you are a parent, that does not give you the right to determine what you want your child to learn. See, that's something America really has a hard time understanding. That little one over there, he or she, it's not just your child, right? Your child has to be able to go out into the country, into the rest of the world, and deal with people that are totally different from them. And the kid needs to know that and understand that. And when that person is 18, that's when they have to make up their own mind about what lifestyle they're going to choose. But in the meantime, to try and shut somebody up, right, and hide them somewhere in the closet, that's stupid. That's just plain stupid, and it needs to stop. And no educational department of any state should be allowed to get away with that. And frankly, any state that does, they need to be hauled into court. They need to be hauled into the on the international stage and be called out for what they are. They're trying to commit genocide. They are trying to commit cultural genocide. How dare you tell me that my history shouldn't be taught? How dare you tell that Irishman that the history of how he and his family came to be here should not be taught? How dare you going to tell that Italian how their people were treated when they first came to this country in large numbers? How dare you say that lynching, which is an American pastime, and for a while it was happening at least once every weekend in this country. How are you going to dare tell me that that's not relevant? Doesn't make any sense. And we wonder why we have the problems that we have in this country, why we have the domestic issues that we're contending with. See, one of the big problems, and please don't get me on this anti-American crap. I love this country. I love the things that we have been able to do. We have done some powerful, great things. Thanks to Abraham Lincoln, America is one of the only countries in history, and I'm going to try and look that up. I'm going to look that up tonight, once and for all. I tried last night. I couldn't find it. But we, as far as I can tell, we are the only nation that literally went to war to free human beings. That is a great thing. That is a thing that all Americans can be proud of, because no one's topped that. When Britain ended slavery in her empire, they did some economically, some with, the legislative process, what have you. Number one, they did it almost 2 generations before America did. That's the first thing. But even the French, with their rights of man, which I adore, but even they did not go to war to end human bondage. But America did. And I will say this, for modern times, if you're talking about from the 1600s on to now, America, again, as far as I know, we are the only country that went to war to free a fellow human being. Yes, it was disconcerting. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like it. But damn it, the thing was done. And we did it. And we should be proud of it. That ranks right up there with going to the moon, actually walking on the moon. So please, don't call me tonight talking about I'm anti-American. America has done super duper marvelous great things, period. But America is composed of human beings. And those human beings make mistakes, okay? You do, I do, she does, because we're human. We wouldn't need salvation if we weren't human. Or as my late wife used to say, that's why the man put erasers on pencils, because people make mistakes. And it is necessary, not only good, but it is also necessary to learn of those mistakes so they won't be repeated. That's common sense. That's why the Jewish people, what's they're saying? Never again. That's how you learn. So for what these people and their anti-CRT craziness is all about, it is about that craziness. And it is dangerous. And it is harmful to the domestic and international body politic. And we need to stop on it now. And I think that that's something that the American people really need to sit down and ponder while we still have the time to ponder it. Listen, I want to thank you so much for having us in your home today. Please check us out same time, same place next week. And if you happen to catch us on YouTube, if you could check that little box, you know, giving your opinion, did you like the show or what have you? You got the number there. Check us out on YouTube. Call us. Tell us what you think. So until next time, may the Creator bless you, and may you and your family be well. Take care. I believe